I'm here in the Nagasaki Peace Park, in Nagasaki obviously. Nagasaki is different to the other Japanese towns I've visited so far. For once there's almost no foreign tourists. I've met two at the hostel I'm staying in, and apart from that everybody seems to be Japanese. The Peace Park is obviously here to commemorate the bombing of Hiroshima. And I thought I'd tell you a bit about how it all came to be that actually Nagasaki got bombed as well as Hiroshima. And when the Americans bombed Hiroshima on 6th of August in 1945, the devastation was so complete that it actually took an entire day for the message to filter through the system and actually reach Japanese headquarters. So it wasn't until the 7th of August that the Japanese actually knew what had happened. The government, who by this time knew that the war couldn't be won, thought it was a perfect opportunity to actually ask for surrender and end the war right then. The military, on the other hand, thought that surrender was unthinkable, and they had already started to plan for the defense of the homeland. And if I remember correctly, one of the top generals actually said 1,000,000 sacrifices for Japan. That's what the military wanted. But Japan was getting more and more. They were under more and more pressure from not just the Americans through the Pacific, but the Russians was pressing on towards China as well. And on the 8th of August, the Russian diplomats in Japan delivered the message that from midnight on the 8th there would be war between Japan and Russia. Same day they get the message from Truman, leader of the American forces in the Pacific, that unless you surrender, we are going to drop more bombs. Instead of taking these threats seriously, the infight in the government and the military ended up in them sending a commission to Hiroshima to actually find out what had happened and whether it could really have been as bad as it was. Which meant that since they didn't answer the demand for surrender on August 9th, the day after, at 11:02, the second atomic bomb, which is called the Fat Man, was dropped on Hiroshima. On the same day, the Russians enter Manchuria in China and send the Japanese forces fleeing in disarray. Again, there's a lot of indecisiveness in the military and the government. They're fighting each other on what to do. The emperor, though, the symbol of Japan, he agrees with the government, and he thinks that surrender is the only way forward. And Truman, trying to work this to advantage, demands that it's going to be the emperor who's going to sign the peace treaty when they surrender. But there's so much dissent in the Japanese leadership that it takes till the 14th. So for 3, 4, 5 days, there's discussions, committees, trying to decide what is it they're going to do. On the 14th, the emperor enters the scene. He actually turns up at the government chambers, something that's almost unheard of, and says that Japanese must accept the inevitable they has to accept America's demand and capitalize. So from August 15, that's when the emperor, he publicly announces to Japan that they are no longer in war. Loudspeakers are put up on the streets. Cars drive through the streets with loudspeakers and play the recording of the emperor telling them about the surrender. The Japanese propaganda machine had been so effective that this comes as a shock to many Japanese who thought they were winning, who thought the war was going great. So there are stories of people throwing themselves on the street and tearing almost their eyes out in shame and fear because of what was to come. But that was the end of the Second World War for the Japanese, and the end of a lot of lives in Nagasaki.